The Lumina Foundation is a U.S.-based private foundation. We're the largest foundation in the U.S. focused exclusively on post-high school learning, so everything from training to college and university programs is part of our purview. And our efforts at Lumina Foundation are aimed at achieving a specific goal. We want 60% of Americans to achieve a high-quality degree, certificate, or other credential by 2025. And that 60% threshold is a combination of what the best international competitors to the U.S. around the world are achieving and what our workforce needs are in the United States in terms of the talent needs for American society today. Education, I think, and more broadly sort of human talent development is really critical to our success going forward as a global society, because human capacity, human invention is ultimately tied to our shared success as a society. In order to be able to share that success, we've got to increase the talent levels of everyone, and the way that you do that is through formal learning efforts, whether they are in formalized structures like schools or whether it's in work or in direct-to-consumer learning opportunities through technology, etc. The point is you want to increase the capacity of people to learn, to grow, to be able to contribute not only to their own well-being, but to our shared well-being as a society. Unfortunately, we have disparities in learning and disparities in educational attainment in the U.S. and globally. And so trying to level the playing field by making equity being defined as primarily racial and economic justice, is very important piece of this. It's the undercurrent, it's the foundation for all of the work, because increasing equity means that we're creating more opportunities for those who are least well served. They are generally the fastest growing populations, so not only will they benefit, but all of us will benefit as a society. Humility is a very important part of individual leadership, leading one of these philanthropic organizations. Being a good listener, being humble is really important. And as, you know, at the same time, I think being really specific about what you're trying to achieve and being clear about what your goals are and what your intent is really important. So making sure that you aren't just directional, you know, not just saying, I want to do some good in some area, how much good and in what ways. That's really important. So in our efforts at Lumina Foundation, this time-limited quantitative goal, this 60% educational attainment rate by 2025, that's an expression of that. It's a way of helping people understand that we are trying to achieve something very specific, because getting to that 60% attainment rate has a broader social impact, and that's part of what I try to reflect as a leader for this kind of organization. Yeah, transparency is really important. So in our case, having this goal means that we've actually got to report honestly on progress towards the goal. We started this work at Lumina Foundation in 2008. Educational attainment has increased since 2008 after several decades of not increasing very much. So that's the good news. The bad news is it's not increasing at a fast enough rate in order to be able to get to the 60% goal by 2025. We're at about 47% right now in the US. So part of our role as private foundations is to take risks that others won't take. So if we're taking risks, that means that some of what we do should fail. And so if we're not transparent and candid about what's failed so that we can learn from those failures in order to increase our success in the areas where we need to do better, we're not doing our job. Yeah, I think it's really important as a private foundation to not only be transparent about what your goals are and what you're trying to achieve, but to make sure that you're very deliberate about building those collaborative partnerships. One illustration of that in our work at Lumina Foundation is that we've invested in 24 communities around the United States in what are called talent hubs. And in those talent hubs, we're trying to increase the educational attainment level in those communities. Part of that is that we expect those investees to actually produce outcomes and to be transparent about the outcomes that they're trying to achieve. So that's something that you've got to build a level of trust and relationship with over time to actually acknowledge that maybe you're not achieving your outcomes, maybe you're not achieving scale. So that transparency is a very important part of it. These philanthropic organizations have, of course, long been focused on social return, and impact investing has sort of brought this conversation about financial return and social return into this sort of ongoing deliberation, which I think is useful. But the learning return, I think, long term may be the most important element of this. And the reason for that is that we learn by doing, and the only way that we will get better, in other words, get better being defined as achieving a higher impact with what we're investing, is by actually learning from what works and what doesn't work. And so understanding that we are learning organizations and that we should take that seriously is critical. The best way to do that is to do it both in formative and summative ways. For a long time, foundations focused on evaluation as a sort of summative process. Let's run a program for 5 or 7 years and let's do an evaluation at the end and let's figure out what we learned and let's try to do something else. Now we recognize that change happens in real time, so you've got to share information broadly and you've got to use that information in real time to make decisions.